Hey gang, welcome back to Dr. D's Health Tip of the Week. We are going to be talking this week about dopamine. Happy Independence Day, 4th of July. You live in the land of plenty. If you're an American, get to express yourself, talk shit about your government, do whatever you need to do, celebrate this wonderful land, have some opportunities to make money and live free. And like I said earlier, we got problems like every other country, but really, a charmed life relative to what's out there in certain parts of this world. So why am I feeling depressed? The number one hallmark of depression in my clinic is lack of dopamine in the brain. Dopamine is the kingpin that does ambition and drive, feelings of self-worth. More than you need a hug from mom, you need dopamine to say, hey, I am allowed to exist, I'm allowed to have needs, I'm allowed to have goal setting and dreams, I can accomplish those goals. That's dopamine. Feelings of hopefulness, part of our libido, and the ability to complete tasks. So the theme of every suicide note in a study done was the feeling of hopelessness. That's the number one theme across the board in suicide notes, meaning I don't have any hope that I could ever feel good. Bye-bye, I'm checking out. To make light and a heavy topic, the second theme in suicide notes is here's how you set the sprinklers. Very practical information, but those who are leaving this planet prematurely, those who are not having a good time while they're on this planet, suffering extreme depression, are going to be our low dopamine people. And then if you can't do things like the ability to finish tasks, you make yourself a simple checklist, you can't get it done at the end of the day, your self-worth's going to take a hit. You're not going to feel encouraged, you're going to feel discouraged. So I want to talk about how do we make this miracle molecule and how do we preserve it and keep it going for years to come. So dopamine is created like all the other neurotransmitters in our brain through the creation of energy. We need ATP, again, cash money, wampum, to pay for the creation of dopamine. Serotonin, GABA we talked about last week, phenylethylamine for focus and attention, acetylcholine for memory. All of these brain neurotransmitters need steadfast oxygen, but serotonin and dopamine are extra sensitive to low oxygen. So just like previously, follow the oxygen. One of the most hidden causes of depression is low oxygen from sleep apnea. That's why when someone says they're depressed, we're always screening for apnea. What about anemia? What if we have a celiac patient who's low in iron because they have destroyed gut lining? What if we have a vegan who doesn't get their iron needs met and they are anemic? What if they have hypotension, low blood pressure, and whoosh, oxygen is not getting to the head? What if they have cigarette smoking issue or popcorn lung from vaping too much of funky oils and they can't exchange oxygen for CO2? What if they have CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome from mold or Lyme, and they can't deliver oxygen at the capillary level? Or they can go Lance Armstrong and oxygen dope with something like EPO, and Lance is gonna feel full of ambition and drive and feelings of self-worth, and I can conquer this mountain and pedal the Tour de France for days. That's how we want to feel. So follow the oxygen and follow the fuel. I know I sound like a broken record, but people always want to jump into bed with the sexy supplements before addressing the basics. So whether you're running on beta oxidation, burning fats via ketones into ATP, or you're keeping your blood glucose steady from a carb-conscious diet, high healthy fat, moderate steady lean animal protein, or being a smart protein replete vegan, and then setting your T3 free levels. So T3 free is the end game of thyroid hormones. When a body is not in a state of inflammation, T3 free will bind the cell and set the pace of how quickly do I create dopamine, how quickly do I create serotonin, GABA, etc., etc. This is why a hypothyroid patient is losing their memory, they're depressed, they don't have any enthusiasm, they can start running anxious, no memory, no focus and attention, no enthusiasm, no ambition and drive, because all of these neurotransmitters can crash. Almost like pancytopenia on a blood draw, low white blood cell, low red blood cell, and low platelets, you can get pan neurotransmission. So across the board, get your thyroid checked. On lab, you're going to see most labs have T3 free set at 2 to 4.4, Remember, that's the trashy bell curve. They put over 10,000 unhealthy Americans. We want T3 free at least 3.0. Wonderful docs like Dale Bredesen in his work on the end of Alzheimer's will tell you subclinically low T3 free at 4.2. So 3 is the bottom of the barrel. We're trying to get our patients T3 free into the 4s. When I tell my kids, hey, put on a jacket, it's cold outside, and they say, Daddy, I'm not cold. I pull their blood and I'll see a T3 free on my 10 and 12-year-olds at 5.2. These are little hummingbirds of energy production with wonderful T3 levels, no apnea. We feed them like our paleo kids because they're string beans and they got the fuel as well. So don't forget the basics. Phenylalanine turns into tyrosine, and tyrosine will then via B6 turn into levodopa, which eventually creates dopamine. There's a disease genetic issue we've talked about called cryptopyrroles, and that's where people can pee out B6, zinc, and manganese. After I've looked at the basics, sometimes I'll screen for cryptopyrroles and see if they're not holding on to B6 and not making their neurotransmitters. If we want to enhance these, nothing better than your exercise high. Now again, I'm not going to take someone with severe rheumatoid arthritis and tell them drop and give me 50 push-ups, right? We're going to work through the inflammation, slowly but surely build them into an athlete, into something they love to do. Did they used to play tennis? Do they like to ride a bike? Do they like to do martial arts? Is it skiing powder? What's their deal? But you got to move your body to get your natural dopamine high. One of my favorites is cacao. I love the Chalaca liquefied cacao. 2 to 4 ounces of that with some unsweetened almond milk. Woo! Thank you, Ozo Coffee, right? So great doing pure cacao. You want to watch the sugars. If you're more of a 55% bar, you're going to get in trouble with too much sugar in that cacao. The more you can push the higher percentage cacao, the theobromine in there is going to push our dopamine pathways, and you're going to feel locked and loaded and ready to go. Amino acids like DLPA, that's again D-L-phenylalanine or L-tyrosine, can amino acid load this pathway. Blueberries, have you ever felt high off eating a giant bowl of blueberries? I have. Outside of Bastyr, there was a family with a big blueberry bog in their backyard, and you could pick as many as you want and pay $1 for a giant bag. And we would eat and eat and eat, and we'd all be high as kites off the wonderful blueberries. Those bioflavonoids push the dopamine in your brain, and that's why you're going to enjoy those blueberries. Eucanopurians is a herb that also will push dopamine, and so does Vitex, a herb that's famous for female reproductive, but it's actually a dopamine agonist, which then pushes luteinizing hormone to make testosterone in the male or progesterone in the female. So a great misunderstood herb there, Vitex. So don't jump in bed with these until you got your basics straightened out. And I just want to remind folks that dopamine's old name is prolactin inhibiting factor. It does a lassoing, a wrangling of pro-milk making hormone. The only time prolactin should be high is if you're a new biological mom, your brain should be telling your breast tissue to make milk to feed the baby. Otherwise, prolactin is high from things like benign prolactinoma tumors, maybe a malignant tumor, and elevated prolactin on lab is absolutely suggestive of a low dopamine problem. And severely elevated prolactin, remember, go get worked up by your doctor. So a lot of our things like cabergoline in the endocrinologist's office, that's a dopamine agonist that will bring down prolactin. Now, what if you are suffering things like bipolar tendencies or schizophrenic thought, auditory or visual hallucinations? Those are often glutamate toxic and dopamine toxic brains. So a lot of our antipsychotic drugs are actually meant to bring down dopamine, so you're not running outside naked saying, I'm the lizard queen or I'm the lizard king, right? That is too much dopamine, right? So you want it not too high, not too low. The opposite of depression is mania. So you're looking for that sweet spot of productivity. I feel functional, my brain is clean, and I can run through my day and be productive, but I'm not going manic. So all of these ideas are contraindicated for people with bipolar schizophrenia. That's more what we talked about last week, pumping the brake pedal of GABA and bringing down the glutamate toxicity. So that's dopamine. I hope you guys get out there, get a workout, eat some blueberries. Consider getting a sleep study if you're waking up tired and hungover and your spouse tells you you're snoring. Don't skip your meals if you need fuel and you're not doing well on intermittent fasting, etc., etc. Pump up that dopamine, set some goals, and live your dreams. We'll see you next week on Dr. D's Health Tip of the Week.